Welcome back to RSS Commentary on Saturday, October 17th. I'm your host, Cale McCullough, and we're resuming where we left off. There was a lot of stories on this episode, and so the live stream has been on for about 9 hours, and still not done with them. We have 15 more. So in this next article from the Daily Mail, exclusive in all caps, leader of quote unquote white supremacist Proud Boys is director of unofficial support group called Latinos for Trump, has ties to Republicans, including the president's son, Don Jr., Senator Ted Cruz, and Roger Stone, who is a member. Enrique Tarrio is serving as Florida State Director of a political support group, Latinos for Trump, Daily Mail has revealed. This is the dude. He's an Afro-Cuban. Probably really doesn't like socialism, like most of the Cubans. A spokesperson for the Trump campaign, told DailyMail.com that neither Tarrio nor his Latinos for Trump are affiliated with the president's official Latinos for Trump coalition. Tarrio is the national chairman of the Proud Boys, the quote-unquote right supremacist group who Donald Trump told to, quote, stand back and stand by at Tuesday's debate. DailyMail.com can reveal that Tarrio ran for Congress as a Republican earlier this year. Tarrio, 36, has been pictured with Trump confidant Roger Stone, who is a Proud Boy member, President's son Don Jr., and GOP Senator Ted Cruz. Cruz co-sponsored a Senate resolution based on a petition written by Tarrio to designate the left-wing riot group Antifa as a domestic terror organization. Tarrio posted a selfie of him and Don Jr. online with a caption, quote, blurry, but at least we spoke about the rampant censorship of conservatives, end quote. Tarrio's an Afro-Cuban from Miami, and if you live under a rock, Cuba has been under the control of the Castros, communist people, and Cubans really just don't like socialism. Proud Boys don't like Antifa. Antifa are Marxist. Marxists are socialist. I don't think that these Proud Boy people are white supremacists. I think that the history of them shows that they were formed to fight the far left, that it was kind of a joke. Their gang initiation procedure is to punch you while you name 5 different breakfast cereals. It's kind of like a joke. But whenever they show up somewhere, it's usually pretty peaceful. And then Antifa will show up, and then they start fights with Proud Boys. So I don't think that the Proud Boys are the ones who are at fault here. They have freedom of speech. It definitely seems like the media has this insane power to label people as white supremacist, misogynist, xenophobic, and in order to smear them, to destroy them. Because in today's world, being called a white supremacist is as bad as being called a pedophile. So this power, of course, it's going to get abused. These journalists sitting up top the ivory tower, they're petty and vindictive. They love to get back at people. A lot of them are narcissists. One tendency of narcissists is that they like to destroy people. They like to manipulate people and own them. And they always have to have people talking about them. And if you're not talking about them, then they become upset. They can get jealous of what you have. Something about their mirror neurons in their body aren't able to mirror people correctly, so they don't quite fit in. So they will because they don't fit in, they'll become jealous of other people that do fit in, and they don't have the ability to mirror other people's actions exactly, and that it will cause them to get angry when other people are taking their spotlight because they're a narcissist and they have to have the spotlight all the time. So definitely seems as though a lot of these ivory tower liberals sitting up top their ivory tower are, just by the nature of their profession, attention whores. You must pay attention to them. And then when they get upset about Donald Trump, then it's like they're getting pissed off that Donald Trump is taking the spotlight. And they have to be the ones that are in the spotlight. And, this is kind of the nature of politics. So it's not 100% them. It is kind of baked into the cake here. But it's definitely not a good path to be going down, to just be labeling people as these demonic labels. I know I have been labeled as demonic, as a misogynist and a racist for doing this show because I don't support unrestricted immigration. I support some immigration restrictions, not draconian immigration restrictions, but a reasonable level of immigration restrictions. And so to these people, they think that you're racist against Latinos, as if Latinos are a race of people. They're not. We're the only ones that call them Latinos. Down in South America, they call them Colombians and Brazilians and Argentinians and Mexicans. But to the white feminists up here in the United States, they're all the same. To them, it's just they're all just Latinos. Like, they all think the same, and they're all from the same place, and they all have the same needs. They all vote the same way, and that's because they're simple-minded. And so they're saying that Proud Boys is an anti-immigrant organization because they also, too, support reasonable immigration restrictions. Now, their head is an Afro-Cuban. Obviously, his family would have immigrated here at some point in time. But not every single immigrant out there wants everybody else to move here. Like, a lot of people move to the United States to get away from the people in their country. They don't actually want the other people to move here. Like, they came here and they want their family to grow and they want their family to control the United States. They don't want their family to shrink and then to pack in a whole bunch more people from all around the world until we're the size of China. And then we're more poor than they were in the country that they left. That's not what they want. There's like consequences to just like packing all these people in. And it's that, the consequence is that we get overpopulated and then we pollute our environment and then we don't get to live the same quality of life as we used to because we had to split up the resources in half to supply the extra double in population increase. So like this, for immigrants, a lot of immigrants, they get stuck at the bottom of the social hierarchy in these big cities because uh, they get stuck at the bottom of the social hierarchy because there's so many new immigrants coming in that they have to compete with these people for cheap labor, and the illegal immigrants will undercut them for labor every time. And so it makes it so it's a lot harder for the people at the bottom to rise up the pyramid when there's so much competition and we have to split the resources more ways. So as an immigrant who legally immigrated to the United States, it doesn't really make sense to you to have 25% of the immigrants who come to the United States be from Mexico. It doesn't. Currently, 25% of immigrants are from Mexico. That Mexico has a population of 150 million people. That's like very little compared to the rest of the world. So the diversity of the people who are immigrating to the United States in the current system is not diverse, and it doesn't represent the population of the world. So you, as a Afro-Cuban, you're looking at this and you're saying, hey, why are 25% of these immigrants from Mexico? Why are 56% of illegal immigrants from Mexico? It's because most of these immigrants are voting for Democrats. So the Democrats want them to come in, and then the Republicans can't stop them. Like the California state sanctuary laws, or sanctuary state laws, they can't do anything about this. So it's kind of like a thing where it's like the way that politics is controlled is by bringing on new voters, like and getting people to switch sides who are independents. And the immigrants are one of the largest sources of new voters for the Democrats. 2/3 of them are voting. 2/3 of Latinos vote for Democrats. 91% of Black people vote for Democrats. Almost all of the Asians vote for Democrats. So like everybody but the white people are voting for Democrats. So Democrats love when you bring in a whole bunch of immigrants. They love that shit. To them, they're foaming at the mouth. They're like new voters and they want to vote left. Yeah. And so as a Republican, you're like, all right, well, why do we want to bring in 1 million people per year to the country? 1 million people every single year. I live in Oregon where the population is 4.4 million people. So that's like a little bit less than a quarter the size of my state every single year that you're bringing in. So a lot of people would say, okay, why is there 25% of these people coming from Mexico? Why do they get all of like 25% of the share of illegal immigration, 56% of the share of illegal immigration? Well, obviously you need some sort of restrictions on immigration. You can't just have unrestricted immigration. You have to have some restrictions, such as immigration has to be from a diversity of different places around the world. It can't all be from one place. We're not trying to have Mexico take over our country through immigration. We don't want Mexico does not want Americans to flood over the border and start annexing Mexico through illegal immigration and creating settlements. And then eventually they chop off like Tijuana or something. They don't want that. Like, we want to both respect our borders, both of us, and then we want to have a good relationship. We want to protect each other. Then we have a good relationship with each other, and then we don't have to worry about things like wars and crime spilling over the border. It's just better for immigrants in general to not allow unrestricted immigration, because eventually we'll be the size of China. Like, you have to have some sort of reasonable immigration restrictions. They can't be bigoted. Like, they have to, but our legal system forces us to have laws that aren't bigoted. But currently, as it stands, the immigration laws are bringing in too many people, because our native birth rate, people who are white Americans, American Indians, blacks, and Asians all have birth rates that are very low. So our population is shrinking, and then you keep bringing in 1 million more people, And we don't know what this is going to do to the politics in the future when you start adding, could be up to 100 million people by the time I die, more that they bring into the country. And so Proud Boys' immigration stance is pretty similar to mine. They're immigrant friendly, but they believe in American nationalism, which is where our identity here in the United States is shared between everybody here, and our law system. We fought the Nazis in World War II. We freed the slaves. We passed the Civil Rights Act of 1968, and also the other one, the first one. There's two of them called the Civil Rights Act, and these things make it so that the identity of America is multicultural and against bigotry and is for inclusion. So a lot of people smear nationalism as like you act like it's like nationalism in Nazi Germany or nationalism in the Soviet Union or China. Everybody's nationalism is different. When you say nationalism, you mean there's tribalism where everybody's got different tribes. And then there's nationalism where you have like everybody has one, or there's like one promoted identity for the nation. And then you have globalism. And globalism is where you have free market capitalism, where the global community can buy whatever they want, and then rich people from other countries come and they buy up your country, and they come up to the top of the social hierarchy because they have all the money and they bought the businesses and they're up at the top, and it's like a permanent steep social hierarchy. Globalism is a bad thing. Tribalism, it can be a bad thing if you run a government like that. But nationalism, which is what the Proud Boys support, is a good thing, because what they're saying is that the identity of America right now is what we need to protect. We need to protect the culture that we've generated, things such as Christmas, the 4th of July, Thanksgiving, Halloween, these things, these very specifically, and Easter. These things are deeply woven into the fabric of our culture, and immigrants do not observe these holidays. There are holidays that we observe, and when we bring in a massive amount of immigrants from other countries, they don't observe the holiday like we do. They don't have the same traditions, the same culture. And so when we bring in too many people too quickly, we lose our culture and our tradition, because everyone else starts to modify it, and they appropriate our culture, and then our culture becomes the recessive culture instead of the dominant culture, and then we fade away into history, which is not a good thing. That means that the other cultures have dominated us, and whereas we're not supposed to, as a country of white people, we're not supposed to spill over in our neighbors like Mexico and then start annexing their territory. We're not supposed to do that. But then the tides will flip very quickly, and the other side is doing that. They don't care. It's called anti-white racism. It's where they blame us for stuff our ancestors did, such as slavery, because the 6% of white people owned slaves. And then they said that we took the land from the American Indians, even though the American Indians were nomads. Up to 95% of them died from smallpox. And they didn't have a government. So you can't really steal land. It was unoccupied land. It was when we didn't have modern technology. It's not my fault that there was a bunch of people that didn't have electricity a long time ago. I don't know anything about how people treated each other. Well, I know a little bit, but I don't have anything to do with that. It's not my sin. I have nothing to do with the Holocaust. I have nothing to do with the rise of Adolf Hitler and with fascism, and I don't know anything about that. It's not, well, I mean, I do know a little bit about the history, but I had nothing to do with it. My family had nothing to do with it. But people want to blame me because I'm white and I'm a male, because I don't agree with unrestricted immigration, and I don't agree with our culture, our policies being set up so that our cultures and traditions go the way of the dodo bird. I'm not. I think that our laws and our systems should be set up to preserve our culture and our heritage that is so beautiful. The traditions and the cultures of America are worth preserving. It's a wonderful nation full of good people who they deserve to not be just stampeded by the globalist community, because the globalist community is very smart. It's not that white people are superior to them. It's the other way around. The white people aren't doing very well in school right now. I'm a software and computer engineer. I know my GPA wasn't the best, and I've had problems because of that. And a lot of white men are not being able to come up because the women are very agreeable, and people want to study with them in college because they're pretty and they want to pay their way. Older guys want to pay their way, so they'll date them because they're young and hot and they can have babies, and older women can't. So for the guys, we don't have like people hitting us up to be in a study group. Like, we got to do all this stuff ourselves. And a lot of times, if you're a broke dude and you don't got no money, it's next to impossible to get that as much study time with the hot chicks because they're off with the guys that got money. And you're out working some minimum wage job in college while the girl's got other people paying her stuff and buying her stuff and wanting to study with her. So it's like a lopsided system. And then when you throw all these immigrants into the situation, so we got to compete with them for labor, cheap labor, and then also they're way smarter than us. They come up real quick. The globalists will dominate and take over our country because our people are not as good as them. It's definitely a white inferiority problem. You cannot compete with the globalist kids. Their kids are on it. Like, they're good people. They raised their kids right. Our kids are fuck ups. This is the problem with immigration right now, is fundamentally our people are weak right now. Our birth rate is very low. Our poverty rate's very high. We've got drug and alcohol problems. We've got all kinds of problems with crazy leftists pushing socialism in the big cities. And we've got this crazy group of ivory tower liberals in control of the ivory tower who are pushing this radical leftist agenda where it's like critical race theory, where it's like they're trying to blame white people for the people in the big city being poor because they were into hip hop and they were more interested in partying and doing drugs and robbing people than studying, hanging out with the nerds, and then rising up to the top of the social hierarchy. And then they want to say it's people like me's fault because I criticize them. I don't believe that they're the victims. I believe because I'm an engineer and I used to party. I know from being used to rage. I used to party hard in school, and my grades suffered from it. And the people who did well are the people who didn't have a lot of friends, who didn't go out and party, and they spent their time on campus with their study groups, and they weren't doing drugs and having sex. And instead, they were being good kids, and they did really good in school, and then they rose up to the top. And that's the thing that we need to emulate. Problems with like the single moms, because in the African American community, in my lifetime, African Americans with 2-parent homes, they had single digit poverty rates. And the people, like, if you are from a single mom, your chance of going to jail goes up 20 times. Your chance of being poor goes up 9 times. It's really high. Like, it's orders of magnitude higher chance of you being poor and going to jail if your mom is single. And it's because we need the nuclear family in order to give our kids a competitive chance. You cannot replace having a mother sitting down with a child and a grandmother and a grandfather and a father sitting down with the child and teaching them, going through the stuff. Because a lot of times the parents aren't even going to remember the stuff. Like you get the homework from the kids today with all the Common Core stuff, and a lot of parents are like, wow, this is like college for kids. And that's because that's what it is. That's 2020. That is the way it is. Moving forward, the work is a lot harder. And that's because the international community is that competitive. They can do that. Their kids are doing more than that. Your kids are falling behind. So I think that the Proud Boys, what they stand for is actually good for America. I'm not a Proud Boy. I don't know any Proud Boys. I haven't had any interactions with them. But from what I can see, what they support is they support Western chauvinism. People think they misidentify chauvinism with male chauvinism. They think the two things are that's not true. Male chauvinism is bad. That's part of misogyny. But chauvinism means like patriotism. And patriotism in this context means American nationalism. And American nationalism is really good. Like that means that these people are the good guys and not the bad guys. American nationalism is a tolerant form of nationalism because America freed the slaves. We passed the Civil Rights Act after the Civil War of 1968. We fought the Nazis. We fought the communists. We are the shining beacon of light. We are the world's hope for democracy. We birthed democracy here from a bunch of racist white supremacists. So obviously white supremacy can't be 100% bad because without the white supremacy, what we would have ended up with was just dictatorships. So these people are just trying to slander these Proud Boys as white supremacists just because some of these people are proud of their race. And it's like, there's two different kinds of racism. There's one, there's a proud of your race. And this is kind of, can be a mixed bag, but people who are proud of your race, what they say is it's like you're selling soap. So when you sell soap, you're not supposed to say, my soap is just like the other guys, it's all right. That's not how you sell soap. When you sell soap, you say, my soap is the best. Everybody else's soap sucks. All right. So can be a benign form of racism. And then you have your eugenicists, and then your eugenicists are really bad people who think that other people are genetically inferior. They're like your scientific racist and your people who would look at the features of African Americans and then determine that they're inferior based upon these features because they believe in what is called social Darwinism. Those people are scummy, but they're not the same group of people. They're actually two distinct groups of people. We can describe ones are soap sellers and then the others are eugenicists, which are really bad people. So to say that you have some soap sellers, I've known some soap sellers, and like my friend's roommate, or no, his landlord, he lived in this like ghetto rundown place he was growing weed in for a long time. And his landlord was this like racist guy, and I'm not gonna say his name, but he was like, had a hard drug problem. He'd like be doing crack and meth. And then he'd like get all these like really nasty looking hookers. So he wouldn't come to get the rent for like months at a time. And then he would like show up with a bunch of like fat, nasty looking hookers to get the rent. He was like all spun out on drugs, like meth and crack, dude. And he's like, I need some money for some crack. This guy was a hoot. Not all these people are like Nazis. They're all, some of these people are just like old timers that believe some old time shit. Some of these guys, they do that white power symbol. Well, it's like an okay symbol. And then, I think, some of these guys, are racist, but, a lot of Latinos are racist too. A lot of black people are actually racist. There's actually black racists, people who, think that, people who aren't black are inferior to black people because whiteness lacks culture and blackness means you have more culture than white people, which doesn't make any sense. But then the Latinos, they're descendants of conquistadors. So a lot of light-skinned Mexicans are really, really, really racist people. They don't like dark-skinned Latinos because they're the American Indians, and light-skinned Latinos are the conquistadors. They were the ones that dominated the other culture. So racism is just not unique to white people at all. Not that I'm trying to endorse it. It's definitely a toxic ideology, but I'm not hating on people like that just because my grandmother was racist and I didn't know. Like growing up, my mom was always a hippie. I was always anti-racist. And then I learned that my grandmother was racist. And then I stopped talking to her. And when she died, she was very scared and alone. And I wasn't talking to her. And I think it affected her, made her life bad. Like she thought she was a bad person. And I feel like a bad person for dissing my grandma because of that. And I feel like there's this like poisonous attitude towards anyone that people think are racist, like as if everybody's who's racist is a eugenicist. That's just not true. Not every racist person thinks that they're genetically superior to other people. It's not true at all. What does this say? This video says Trump Biden clash over threat of Proud Boy and Antifa.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
willing to do
specifically?
So I seem to remember, okay, people were insulting Donald Trump because they said, oh, he said stand by, stand down. Well, the debate moderator asked him that question, said, what do you think they should stand by or stand down? And that's what Donald Trump said.
But
do it. Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is.
I think a lot of people, they see these quotes and they're like, oh, I can't believe Donald Trump said that. Oh, and then they're like going off. And it turns out that they took it out of context and it didn't even mean that.
From the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would
white
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing.
So stand back and stand by, that definitely is functionally identical to stand down. That was exactly what the moderator asked Donald Trump. Do you think that they should stand down? And then Donald Trump said, yes, I think they should stand back and stand by, which means stand down.
Problem.
This
is a left-wing.
director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
militia. That's what his FBI, FBI director said.
Well, then
if Antifa is an idea and not an organization, then also too the Boogaloo movement would also too just be an idea and not an organization of people. This logic it's not translative.
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
A bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in
Antifa
your
is
administration
bad.
tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous,
all right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
We're now moving on to the Trump and
you
Biden records.
They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term.
Definitely thought he was pretty rude. What else is there? There's them doing the okay. All right, is it okay? That one looks like a okay, right? Which one's the okay? So that's Roger Stone. This guy definitely has a WP. This guy is OW. This guy's a WP. This guy's a OK. So you can interpret this one of many ways. I'm going to look at it the same way as I look at Black Power. So if you say it's okay for people to say Black Power, and it's okay for people to be proud to be black, and that black people should say, no, I'm proud of being black. Being black is awesome. It's better than being white. I don't think that we should allow, or if you allow black people to say, I'm proud of my race, being black is the best, then you should also be tolerant of people who also say the same thing about their race, because everybody also thinks that their people are the best people. What matters is whether or not you treat others as subhuman, because treating people as subhuman is where we've ended up with most of the mass atrocities in this world. There's a picture of Enrico Tarrio, Ted Cruz. There is Enrico Tarrio with the, I don't know. What is he doing? Is Enrico Tarrio, the Afro-Cuban, does he have a white power hand sign up? This is the question. If you want to comment down below, is that the OK symbol? Is it an asshole? Is it a white power symbol? Another picture of him with White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders. There's him with Florida Governor Rick Scott, who looks like a crackhead in this picture. There's him with Dan Crenshaw, the man. And here's some tweet. Enrico Tarrio tweeted, "Ladies, would you rather donate $20 to Donald Trump's 2020 campaign or walk past this group in a sundress?" I think a lot of people, what did they say about that? In the comment, said, if you decide to do it, let me know. I can film it, make a GIF. I got a picture of Bob Barker. So it definitely looks like they're doing the OK hand symbol. Is that just what they do? Is it like OK? Is that the symbol? The symbol is OK. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind as to what I think about these people. Looks like they're all doing that. Definitely not all white. Latinos are known for being racist. I'm going to call it like I see it. There's the founder of the Proud Boys, Gavin McInnes, co-founder of Vice News, a far leftist publication. Here's a Proud Boy at the Unite the Right rally. This thing says it's a neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville. It wasn't a neo-Nazi rally. It was a anti-immigration rally. And then neo-Nazis showed up and co-opted it, which is different. All right, I think we saw most of these. That's it for this. This next article from the BBC, Proud Boys : far-right group becomes LGBT trend online. Members of the LGBT community have been making Proud Boys a trend on the social... Wait, didn't I already cover this? Shoot. You know what? I already covered this. Sorry. I thought there was another one. Sorry. In this next article from NPR, Kyle Rittenhouse, accused Kenosha shooter, won't face gun charges in Illinois. The white teenager accused of fatally shooting 2 demonstrators, and, well, he obviously did it. There's not him being accused. He did actually shoot those people. We have videos and nobody's contesting it. It's been verified as much as you can verify anything. And injuring a third in Wisconsin in August will not be charged with gun crimes in his home state, an Illinois state prosecutor announced. Kyle Rittenhouse, 17, faces 6 criminal counts in Washington, including first-degree intentional homicide. It's not allegedly, he did use an AR-15 style rifle during protest in Kenosha, Wisconsin. You're supposed to say allegedly if it has not been verified. And the way that you verify it in the journalistic world is you call one of their people. If it hasn't been studied in detail and the videos have been shown to be, this is the key, it's just like if you go into court, if you try to present a video, it has to be a video that you took, or you have to bring in the person into the courtroom who took the video. You can't just take a video from YouTube and bring it into a courtroom and then the court will accept it as true. You have to have some verification behind the video, as in somebody who witnessed the event. In this case, the verification that has gone through, we know that the videos exist. They've been verified. This is beyond, this is clear and convincing that the videos are authentic and that he did use an AR-15 style rifle during the Kenosha race riots that erupted after the police shooting of the alleged rapist, Jacob Blake, because we are taking his girlfriend's word for it that he raped her. Lake County, Illinois State Attorney Michael Neerham's office said in a statement that investigation conducted by local police revealed the gun used in the Kenosha race riots shooting was purchased and stored and used in Wisconsin. Additionally, there's no evidence the gun was ever physically possessed by Kyle Rittenhouse in Illinois, and, quote, the state attorney's office added. So they just assumed that he had done this crime without actually having the gun. This is great. This was a political prosecution through and through. Obviously, watching the videotape evidence, they had enough to show that the other people were attacking him and that he was defending himself. And they didn't press charges till later. I think other people showed up and demonstrated. Maybe they wrote some letters or something to the DA. I can't remember exactly how it happened. And then they politically prosecuted Rittenhouse. But initially, I mean, it's always been clear and cut from the beginning that this was a self-defense thing. The only people who think it wasn't a self-defense thing are politically motivated. Because the videos are obviously show a dude with a gun that got his arm blown off. He had a gun in his hand. He's not denying this. There's no allegedly about this. The video shows the gun. He doesn't deny it. It's been verified. Police in Antioch, Illinois, led the investigation. Antioch is Rittenhouse's hometown, which is located about 15 miles southwest of Kenosha. The Lake County statement did not provide any details about who may have possessed the gun or where it currently is. Little is publicly known about the firearms history, as Chicago Tribune points out, so it's unclear if the teenager or another person would have faced charges in Illinois if investigators had determined Rittenhouse had possession of the gun inside of state lines. An attorney for Rittenhouse had previously said his client never had possession of the gun outside of Wisconsin. Really, they should have checked that before they charged him. I mean, that's just frustrating. Quote, Kyle did not carry a gun across state lines, end quote. Lynn Wood said in a tweet, quote, the gun belonged to his friend, a Wisconsin resident. The gun never left the state of Wisconsin. Truth always prevails, end quote. No, it doesn't. That's not actually true. You're dealing with imperfect court systems. Truth oftentimes does not prevail, especially if you piss off the judge. Ahead of a court appearance earlier this month, Rittenhouse was joined via video link. His legal team submitted a court filing, suggested that he was a patriot, and was only at demonstrations to provide medical assistance while he carried a rifle or for self-defense. Chicago NPR member station WBEZ reports Rittenhouse, a staunch supporter of Blue Lives Matter movement, is said to have traveled to Kenosha to join militiamen who purported to be there to assist the state and local law enforcement to protect property from being destroyed amid the race riots. And definitely property was getting destroyed, so his assumption was correct. Did they need these people to protect the places? Did they actually protect the places? I don't think so. I'm not a big fan of us lying over dead or lying over and playing dead and just allowing race riots to go on. We have the Second Amendment because militias are the necessity of a free state. I strongly disagree with the inability to coordinate militias online. It seems like if you can coordinate a race riot on Facebook or a quote-unquote protest, then you should be a militia is identical to any other protest movement. It's still freedom of assembly. Then you have the right to bear those arms, and they are a necessity of the free state because law and order breaks down. In the Kenosha race riots, law and order broke down. The police could not help you. The only way that you would be able to help yourself is with the Second Amendment, because when you have a mob of people, they will come and they'll gang beat you and probably kill you and take your stuff, because these people are not good people who are rioting. I don't think that they should ban militia groups. I think that they should ban people who are engaging in violence. If someone is engaging in some sort of cabal or like a plot like with that Michigan kidnapping plot of Governor Whitmer recently, it seems like that person should probably be suspended from social media for some period of time. But should they be permanently banned off of social media because of what they did? I think that people need to be on social media. When you ban somebody from social media from life, it's like taking somebody's driver's license away for life, causes permanent irreparable harm to that person. So it seems like a timeout maybe is where we should start. And if the timeouts don't work, then maybe we should ratchet up from there. A timeout is okay. I've been given timeouts on social media, and it wasn't a bad thing. Social media can be very addictive, so a timeout from social media is probably in your best interest. But with that said, they wield an ungodly amount of power over our political system. If they can bring race riots, so they can get donations, they meaning Facebook, can get donations through the donation buttons on Facebook. A lot of it goes to AnyBlue, the Democrat fundraising scam. And then they can they can organize race riots and show up with thousands of people, but you now no longer have any sort of ability to organize defense from that. So, like, what's the point of having a Second Amendment if you can't exercise it? These people, they're also censoring stuff with Section 230 unlawfully. Section 230 requires that to get Section 230 publisher platform protections, you have to censor everything. You have to edit everything to ensure that there is no tort offenses that can be filed from publishing that content. For example, if you are a publisher of a book, it is your duty to go through and ensure that there's no copyrighted content that you can be sued for if you publish that content, because you're the publisher. You are now the speaker of that content. It's not just that somebody else was the speaker of that free speech. Whenever you published it, it became your speech under the United States legal system. Section 230, that says that the internet providers can't possibly moderate all this stuff to make sure that there's copyright law that apply, like it can, everything, nothing violates the copyright laws. And then also like other harmful behaviors such as harassment, distribution of pornography to children, which is illegal in the American legal system. It's called an obscenity. So Section 230, what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to not censor any of it because they can't possibly censor it all. But one particular court case, the court has actually ruled that a website owner was not able to get the Section 230 platform protections because she edited some of the content, because she said she had a family-friendly website. And because she edited some of the content, it means that she did not have the Section 230 protections. But the big tech companies have been getting away with this unchecked, and they absolutely didn't have legal authority to censor our speech at all. So whenever we censor these, what article are we talking about? Whenever we censor these militia groups, don't allow them to organize online, you've become a editor of the speech. You no longer become just a bookstore where you're selling a book. You become the author of the book whenever you edit the speech. And so whenever you prevent militia members from organizing on Facebook, it's functionally identical to censoring their speech because you don't like their political message. And when you do that, you become a publisher and not a platform under Section 230 in the U.S. legal system. Reading on in this article. Oh, well, I think we've pretty much gone through most of this article. What else is there? One more little thing tacked on to the end of this. Next article from Daily Mail. God is on your side. Christian crowdfunding site raises over $500,000 for Kyle Rittenhouse, with donors describing him as, quote, an American hero acting in self-defense, end quote, when he was shot and killed 2 protesters in Kenosha. I was actually suspended off of Twitter for saying the exact same thing about Kyle Rittenhouse, because I believe that he acted in self-defense and that he was working in the capacity of a militia to protect the United States when we were in a time when the crime was so bad that the police weren't able to help us. And in that capacity, he was acting as an EMT to help wounded people. And he was also acted in the capacity of a militia member. And for that, I believe that that statement is true. I was suspended for that on Twitter. I would like to sue them for that. It actually caused me a lot of damages. Is there anything else interesting about that? Rittenhouse is currently being held in an Illinois prison due to return to court on October 9th. So I guess that was 9 days ago. His attorney says that Rittenhouse acted in self-defense, has portrayed him as a courageous patriot who's exercising his right to bear arms. Thousands of Americans have now donated to the Christian fundraiser for Rittenhouse, set up on the website Give, Send, Go. Additionally, another fundraiser has raised more than $2 million for the team. Wow. Woo! Well, he's raking in the bank. Damn, that's almost as much of a score as George Floyd got from his GoFund, or his family got like over $4 million from their GoFundMe scam, trying to say that George Floyd didn't die from a fentanyl overdose. Give me a break, dude. I'm not dumb. I can read a toxicology report. In this next article from the Daily Mail, hundreds of members of black militia raise their guns while holding an armed rally, or raise their fists while holding an armed rally in Louisiana weeks after police fatally shot an African-American man, 31, holding a knife while entering a convenience store. Some of the 400 members of the Not Effing Around Coalition marched through Lafayette, Louisiana on Saturday. NFAC brandished semi-automatic weapons during the procession in what turned out to be a peaceful protest. One non-militia member was arrested after his firearm accidentally discharged during the march. If you're not familiar with this group of radicals, they also did a march through Stone Mountain, Georgia, the place where they have that Confederate monument where occasionally some KKK will meet, but the people who live there are not KKK people at all. So they came and they went through that Stone Mountain, and they were intimidating people with their guns, going up to white people demanding for reparations, telling them that they were their worst effing enemy. And they also, too, accidentally discharged their weapons during that ragamuffin show. So I don't have any beef with these 2A people on who are black. I think that they sound like people that I would really like. But I have a really big problem with how poorly trained these people are. They are not a well-trained militia. Look, when it says a well-trained militia is a necessity to a free state, it means that. Like, those words are actually really literally what it means. It means you have to have the militia be well-trained. You can't just have a bunch of ragamuffin G's from the hood that are momming through with some gun that they got that's not registered, that they don't know how to shoot, or they just purchased one from a arms store in the surge, the big arms sell boom post-COVID, and then like go out and just like without knowing what you're doing, just walk around with the safety off, dude. This is a bad idea, dude. Like, when you're walking around civilians in the city, you're not supposed to have a bullet in the chamber, dude. I mean, I know this is obvious, but you're not going to war. Like, you're not actually going up into a place where you need to have a bullet in the chamber. Like, if you have a bullet in the chamber of your guns, you're mentally ill. You don't need to actually have a bullet in the chamber of your gun unless you're a drug dealer or people are coming after you. There are occasions where you need to have a bullet in the chamber. But if you're a militia and you're at a 2A event, there's absolutely no need for you to have bullets in the chamber of your gun and to have the safety off. That's just straight up dangerous, because accidental discharges happen. And when you're around a bunch of people in a protest, there's other people and you can kill people. I know this is completely obvious, but when you're a poorly trained militia, sometimes somebody needs to say the obvious. One non-militia member, or sorry, Lafayette is where a 31-year-old black man was shot and killed by police officers on the night of August 21st. Tryford Perlin was fatally shot by cops who said he was walking into a convenience store with a knife. NFAC has held demonstrations in Louisville and other cities where black people have been fatally shot. Well, I guess that's kind of, the problem with playing with guns is you can have absolutely zero intentions of shooting somebody. But if you have a loaded gun with a bullet in the chamber and somebody else comes around the corner with a knife, there's a high probability chance you're going to shoot the dude with the knife because you're fidgety. It's called a gun accident. They happen. There's about 20,000 accidental gun deaths in the United States every single year. So when a cop accidentally killed somebody, it's called an accidental gun death. I mean, I know that sucks to hear for a lot of people who've lost family, but it's true. It's absolutely true. When a police accidentally kill somebody, it's called an accidental gun death. It's not called a murder. It's something you have to put up with to be in a free and civilized society. You're going to have to put up with the criminal thugs who will rob you and possibly kill you. And because of that, we have police officers. Because when women get raped, we like it when the cops come and they get the rapists. And because of that, and because they have a war on drugs, we have to put up with this. If you would like to legalize the drugs so that we don't have to put up with the cops, I'm all aboard on that plan. I think that's a great plan. So here's the Not Effing Around Coalition. I've seen video. I mean, these guys look scary. And they're all black with their camo hat on, got their assault rifles. But I think individually, one-on-one, they seem like a bunch of nerds. People like just normal guys. I fully support them having the firepower to stand up to organizations like the KKK. I don't think that they need to be as confrontational. I think that's kind of like, kills the point of whatever they're doing. You're not supposed to instill fear. You're just supposed to make yourself known and protect yourself. But there's another one of the Not Effing Around Coalition raising their fist similar to a Nazi salute. The whole point of raising your fist in a Nazi salute like that is that it shows that you are submitting to the authority of the people. So when the Black Lives Matter people hold up their fists like that, what they're showing that I bow down to the power, the black power. And so it's functionally identical to doing a Nazi salute. There's absolutely no difference in between doing a black power and doing a Nazi salute. Like they're functionally two different things. Or functionally the exact same thing. It's the exact same movement. You've got a hand up or you've got the hand out. There's functionally no difference in between those two things. The idea is that whenever you say fists up, that everybody does it at the same time because it shows unity amongst the people. And what are they saying? They're saying black power. That's what they're saying. They're saying black. This is basically a black power march. These people are proud to be black. They have black pride. But they're probably just normal people. They just are dressing up all extra scary because they're up on some crazy radicalized shit, dude. They're like up on Facebook, seeing atrocity propaganda all the time, seeing pictures of cops shoot people, and then they think that people are targeting them, and then they get in some troll war on the internet. They like like get into it with some dude they think is a white supremacist. And then next thing they know, they're like, meet us here at Stone Mountain at noon on this day. And then they'll show up. I'm not over blowing that. That's actually what happens. Here's a video of cops. Here's a video of the cops shooting the black man holding a knife at the gas station.
Hold on, wait, we gotta witness this. We have to witness. Y'all, they put the window down. Oh, y'all. He got a knife. That man got a knife. They gonna shoot him. No, we got to wait. We got to wait. No, but he got a knife. Get on the ground. They tasing him. He not even doing nothing. He gonna stab. Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh.
Yeah, you people get on one, man. Like, people need to recognize that they need to comply with what the police officer says. It's a life and death situation. They have guns and they can kill you, and they won't go to jail if they do. If you're a threat to the public. I mean, here this dude's walking into a convenience store with the knife in his hand. When the cops are telling you you need to put the weapon down, and they got guns pointed at you, you need to put the weapon down. I mean, I know that this is completely obvious, but sometimes you have to state the obvious. I think that's pretty. So what are they here trying to accomplish here? Are they trying to threaten the police and say they're not effing around? And like, if you gun down any more people with knives going into convenience stores who won't drop the weapon, that they're going to come after the cops? Is that what they're trying to say? Is that the message here, that they're not effing around? That seems to be a terrorist organization at that point in time. Because what are they using? Are they using violence? I don't know. I just think they're up on some radical shit. They're probably not bad people. Probably like their guns. Makes me like them more. Whatever, more power to them. Let's just hope that they don't get harassed by the KKK anymore moving forward, and that they're successful in trying to get people to not fuck with them. This next article from the Daily Mail: U.S. federal agent and QAnon follower is indicted for threatening superior officer, accusing him taking part in 9/11 and being a pedophile in a pedophile ring with Jeffrey Epstein and Hillary Clinton. Indictment names Custom and Border Patrol officer Alberto Almeida. Almeida is accused of sending threatening texts to a superior, Edward Fox. Fox is Customs and Border Patrol's assistant port director for Newark federal prosecutors, and said Almeida is a believer in QAnon conspiracy theory. QAnon followers think there's a deep state made up of pedophiles out to get Trump. No, it's deep state. Deep state doesn't actually mean that. Deep state means very specifically that there's a swamp, that there's people, most U.S. federal government employees live in and around the Washington, D.C. area. These people live, a lot of them who are hired live in the local communities. In that community, that is the staple good job. It's like people look up to that job, pays good. It provides you with respect when you get these jobs. And they give these jobs to their friends and their families. And it's kind of like a good old boys network. Deep state specifically means entrenched swamp where people give their friends and their family jobs, and they start to attack political candidates because they view that they're a threat to their job and their swamp. It's the easiest description of a deep state. So the deep state is actually real. There's actual real Democrats that live around the Washington, D.C. area that have Trump derangement syndrome. They think that Trump is a Russian asset, and they do attack Trump. They do leak information to the fake news industrial complex. They do engage in corruptness. They do fire people who are Trump supporters in the workplace, and they do create a swamp. It's actually true, 100% factual. We do have a group of people that we can say is the swamp. Now, are they pedophiles? Approximately 4% of people will have pedophile urges. Like 1 in 100 people is a pedophile. So the United States government employs millions of people. And so there's, theoretically speaking, there's tens of thousands of pedophiles that work for the United States government. If you just go off of the ratios. Now, some people have varying definitions of what a pedophile is. The definition that I stick to is the one that's in the, what is it? The MSDS? Here, let's look at the, on Wikipedia. What it says is that the cutoff here, the criteria for pedophilia, extends to the cutoff point for prepubescence to age 13. And that is from the DSM. Man, I was way off. The MSDS, isn't that like, that's like the hazardous chemicals one, right? No, the DSM, the Diagnostics and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So DSM of mental disorders. DSM-MD. DSMD. That's the one that says that trans is, or gender dysphoria is a disorder, which by the definition of what they're using is actually true. There's definitely nothing wrong with disorder. Just means that you're not like everybody else, and trans would definitely be not like everybody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being unique. You're a beautiful, wonderful person just the way you are. You don't need to please anybody. So that's the age limit that I use is 13. So there are, okay, eventually in most groups, hold on, what am I trying to say about this article? Got to stay on point. So this guy is thinking these people are in the deep state. There's a pedophile ring. Theory holds that Trump will prevail in the day of reckoning known as the storm. Cabal. I don't think that that's true. There's varying levels of craziness with QAnon. There's just your vanilla. People think that there's pedophile sex trafficking rings. Then there's people who think that they're Satanists. And then there's people who think that they're sacrificing babies in ritual human sacrifice. And then there's people who think that they're making gravy out of 2-year-old babies' brains in the ritual human sacrifice. So it's like a level of craziness. And as the crazy white women get older and older and older, the craziness shit starts to just build up. And a lot of these old crazy white ladies are just going cuckoo, cuckoo on the QAnon, dude. Some of that shit is so crazy, dude. I know I'm probably pissing off a number of people who like my show too. But I'm sorry. The making gravy out of 2-year-olds' brains has gone into crackpot land. I disagree with the day of reckoning known as the storm. So there's some people who think that Donald Trump is like sent by God to protect people. I call Donald Trump the great white savior because he's the savior of the white people because he stopped immigration. He was first person to have enough guts to say anything about it. But a lot of people, they make up these grandiose stories that Donald Trump is this like white savior sent from God, and that he's got these like immaculate qualities, and that the deep state, they're like in with the Illuminati, and that's why they're the satanic cult, is because they're sent by God. And a lot of this is just insane. It's just some story that just like manifests itself. Should it be banned off the internet? Definitely not. I'm not going to judge you if you're a QAnon believer. The people that I've found have been QAnon believers are a pretty wide range of people. There's a lot of people who are open to conspiracy theory stuff on the left. It's not just like people on the right thinking this. There's actually a lot of people on the left, because there's a guy named Jeffrey Epstein. We're going to be covering him here for the next probably hour here, going into the creepy, rapey dom chick, Ghislaine Maxwell. So this guy, from first glance at this, kind of sounds like a wingnut. I'm not going to make any judgments. So who was the guy? Alberto Almeida. And then do we have a picture of Almeida? Here's the criminal complaint. It says, Louis J. Jones, being duly sworn to the state, says this is true. I further state of a special agent in the Office of the Professional Responsibilities of the U.S. Customs Border Protection. This complaint is based on the following facts. So, Alberto Almeida did threaten to assault, kidnap, murder federal law enforcement officer with the intent to impede, intimidate, interfere with such law enforcement officer while he engaged in the performance of official duties, with the intent to retaliate against such law enforcement officer on account of the performance of official duties in violation with Title 18 U.S. Code, Section 115A1B and B4. Anything else? Here's a video from Donald Trump saying QAnon people love our country.
In the United States, evidence that the tragic cost of this virus is higher. I don't know much about the movement other than I understand they like me very much, which I appreciate. But I don't know much about the movement. I have heard that it is gaining in popularity, and from what I've heard, these are people that when they watch the streets of Portland, when they watch what happened in New York City in just the last 6 or 7 months, but this was starting even 4 years ago when I came here. Almost 4 years, can you believe it? We're talking about go away, because there's no reason the Democrats can't run a city. These are people that don't like seeing what's going on in places like Portland and places like Chicago and New York and other cities and states. And I've heard these are people that love our country and they just don't like seeing it. So I don't know really anything about it other than they do supposedly like me, and they also would like to see problems in these areas, like especially the areas that we're talking about, go away. Conditions, they have problems, heart, diabetes, and other problems. If I can help save the world from problems, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to put myself out there. And we are, actually. We're saving the world from a radical left philosophy that will destroy this country. And when this country is gone, the rest of the world would follow. The rest of the world would follow. That's the importance of this country. And when, you know, we really gave them tremendous incentive. But I will say this, we need strength in our country, not weakness. Too much weakness. Yes, John. You have to use it.
Here's a picture. The QAnon believer blocked the bridge near the Hoover Dam with a homemade armored truck in the name of the movement, later pled guilty to terrorism. Wow. Well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know exactly what to think. I mean, this guy pled guilty to terrorism. They're cracking down on QAnon on Facebook. Anybody who is putting out QAnon conspiracy theory movies, they're like shutting them down. I disagree with that. I think that they need to be stripped of their platform 230 protections because they need to either moderate all of the content or none of it. And if they're moderating all of it, then they need to pre-approve the posts before they put them up, because if they don't have Section 230 platform protections, then they are the speaker of those of that content, and then they're liable in court for tort offenses. So either they need to moderate everything, or they need to, and then they're liable for it immediately as soon as people post it, which means that they need to get it cleared. They need to pre-approve it instead of moderating it after the fact, because after the fact, it's too late. Although I could definitely see how this could be a threat, that this could go out of control. I personally don't think that there is actually a pedo cult. I think that there's probably some people who are engaging in prostitution, that they're that in these prostitution networks in and around the Washington, D.C. area, which are frequented by Democrats, that there are 18-year-old prostitutes, and where you find an 18-year-old prostitute, you're highly statistically likely to find a 17-year-old prostitute. Where you're statistically likely to find a 17-year-old prostitute, you're statistically likely to find a 16-year-old prostitute, and so on down the line, each one having lower statistical probability than the rest into pedophilia. And so there is a probability chance that there could be a network of Democratic politicians who are using hooker networks in Washington, D.C., and that some of them are banging underage hookers. But I think that probably is about as close to the truth as it gets, given that there's about 1 to 4% of people are actually pedophiles, that there's a lot of people. So the probability that some of them are in control of the government does go up very high. But are they a satanic cult? Probably not. It's probably a bunch of crazy whack shit from the internet. I could see how that could radicalize people and cause them to commit violence. I'm not trying to endorse it. Don't cancel my channel. This next article from the New York Post: Mighty Duck star and presidential hopeful Brock Pierce regrets Jeffrey Epstein ties. Former child star and presidential hopeful Brock Pierce expressed regrets about his ties to the dead quote-unquote pedophile Jeffrey Epstein in an interview published Tuesday. I guess it's okay to say alleged or to not say alleged as long as the person is not alive. Because most of the news stories we read tonight, when somebody's claimed of being something, they say alleged. I'm going to go off of the definition from the we have it. The definition from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders is that the official age for someone being a pedophile cuts off at 13. So Jeffrey Epstein was accused of having a 14-year-old, what I'm going to argue is a child bride, not a sex slave, because the police do not prevent the girl from visiting Epstein in the jail. We're going to get to that in one of the stories here right after this. So stay tuned. The Mighty Ducks actor who grew up to become a cryptocurrency billionaire and is running as an independent candidate in the 2020 election was contrite about speaking at the 2011 conference in the Virgin Islands supported by Epstein. Quote, had I known that the sponsor had been Jeffrey Epstein, and if I had known what I know now, I never would have gone, end quote, Pierce, 39, told the Daily Mail. The Mind Shifts conference, which featured top scientists, was held just 18 months after the disgraced hedge funder completed his slap on the wrist 13-month sentence in Florida for soliciting prostitution from underage girls, which is not the same thing as sex trafficking. Sex trafficking is where you're trying to like pimp girls out, like you're trafficking a human. You're moving that person from place to place and controlling that person's actions. That's what the trafficking is, like human trafficking. Like you got traffic, like there's traffic and you're moving this person. That's what trafficking means. Quote, I don't do substantial due diligence, nor was there any information about who was sponsoring it. And so I ended up speaking at the event, end quote. In an interview with the Daily Beast, Pierce said that he had never heard of Jeffrey Epstein at the time of the event. Quote, his name was not on the website, end quote, Pierce said. Quote, I was asked to speak alongside Nobel Prize winners about the future of money. I was like, Nobel Prize winner? Sounds great. I'll be happy to talk about the future of money with them. End quote, end quote. Quote, had I known what I know now, I clearly would have never spoken there, but I spoke at the conference that he co-sponsored. Epstein, okay, I think that's the end of the story. Yeah, I'll buy it. I mean, I don't have any evidence to say that this guy is lying. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt, but oftentimes people will lie. I do think that this Epstein thing is blown way out of proportion. We're going to go over here in the next story. It wasn't a sex slave. It wasn't it was a hooker referrals network where one girl is referring another girl. They're sleeping with them, and then that girl would then refer another girl. That's not sex trafficking. That's just prostitution. That's soliciting sex. There's a difference in between sex trafficking and soliciting sex. I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's in this next article from the New York Post, unearthed photos show Ghislaine Maxwell at event to combat sex trafficking. Newly emerged photos show Ghislaine Maxwell at a Manhattan event for a group fighting sex trafficking. Years after she was first accused of procuring young girls for convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, Maxwell is seen in photos obtained by The Sun, smiling widely in the 2013 fundraiser for the Stop Trafficking of People, open paren, stop, close paren. Even posing with the group's founder, Celie de Lavrine, according to The Sun. She got some nerve, de Lavrine told the UK paper of Maxwell, who's currently in custody for sex trafficking charges. Quote, but I'm not surprised. I've come to realize that these people need to appear to be doing good and make people believe it. And quote, de Lavrine said, it was not clear what role Maxwell played in the event, nor how the organizers were seemingly unaware of her connections to Epstein, who had already served jail time for sex with underage girls. Virginia Roberts Guthrie had accused her in court documents as early as 2009, with Maxwell's name tarnished in New York society, especially after 2011 when explosive newspaper articles tied her to Epstein as well as Prince Andrews. And this was the incident where Virginia Roberts Guthrie was 17 and she had sex with the prince in the UK, and the age of consent there is 16, and prostitution is legal there. So maybe, okay, they had some racket going on where they were doing massages and they would pay the girls to do massages naked, kind of like a Nuru massage thing. And then they would have sex with some of them. Not all of them would have sex with them. I find it frustrating when they bring Prince Andrews into this, because the age of consent was 16. She was 17. If she had murdered somebody, they'd try her as an adult. So I'm not buying that Prince Andrews is a pedophile, nor am I buying that this is a pedophile ring. It sounds like most of the girls were above age, and there was some teenagers that were involved. Going off of the... Shoot, I keep forgetting it. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, 5th edition, published in 2013, pedophilia extends the cutoff point of prepubescence to age 13. So Jeffrey Epstein was accused of having sex with one 14-year-old. That does not meet the cutoff. So he's just a statutory rapist, which is the equivalent of raping a woman who's passed out. It's not the equivalent of a pedophile. It's more like a creepy pervert who raped somebody. Still bad. Not like get your pitchforks out. Let's get the pedo. Maxwell's charges, which she denies, accuse her of procuring girls for Epstein in the mid-90s. At the 2013 meatpacking store event, Maxwell, then 51, posed next to French ambassador to U.S. Francisco Delarte, who made an impassionate speech at the event. De Lavergne said, quote, he asked for money for us to open a rescue center in some countries where girls are forced and sold into prostitution. He told how they were raped and beaten, and quote, she said, makes you wonder, was Ghislaine Maxwell to figure out where the sex slaves are at, where she purchased them? I don't think so. The event was held at the meatpacking store of French fashion designer Catherine Maladierno, who was also in the photo with Maxwell, the paper said. So, the question now is she a pedo, or is she a sex trafficker? So who is this girl that Jeffrey Epstein had sex with? That was the 14-year-old. Let's look into this, because this is the question. Is this girl are these people a pedophile network? You know, you got to look at the information that is behind it. This article from the New York Post says, who is Nadia Markinova, the future model turned pilot from Epstein's flight logs? A bombshell blonde pilot who allegedly started out as Jeffrey Epstein's underage sex slave, quote unquote, before morphing into an abuser herself, is presumably named in newly subpoenaed flight logs involving the lavish air flight. Nadia Markinova, who Epstein was accused of bringing to the U.S. around 2001 at age 15. I read some other stuff that said she was 14. or as young as 14 when it started, I think was what happened. Not sure if this was a rescue situation, like her parents were selling her into slavery, sex slavery, and then he rescued her. But the police record, or the records with the jail, show that it was more like a child bride situation. Let's see, they were calling her his Yugoslavian sex slave, quote unquote, which, a lot of boyfriends will call their girlfriend a sex slave. Were they serious about it? He spent years at the late pedophile's side, according to alleged victims, photos, and reports. She's believed to have jetted around with Epstein, including on his plane nicknamed the Lolita Express, because all the young girls he flew aboard it. Markinova was, quote unquote, purchased by Epstein from her family. One of the financiers, accusers previously told cops. The Daily Mail had said, although the pilot's relatives had denied this. So, right away, we have, it is an alleged thing. It's not. This isn't like we have a video of this crime and the thing happened and we can say that this happened. Whenever we say that this person was sex trafficked, you are saying allegedly because we don't actually know whether or not she was actually sex trafficked. An Epstein accuser had said that she was once paid by the sick money man to perform oral sex on Markinova when the pair were teens around 2002. Quote, Epstein would instruct and pay the accuser to have intercourse with his female friend Markinova, according to the affidavit at the time, the Mail reported. The woman's sexual antics include strap-on dildos, large rubber penises, other devices that Epstein had at his disposal, and quote, the document said, according to the Mail, Epstein would watch them have intercourse and masturbate himself, then perform oral sex on the girls, the woman's alleged. Markinova, who is now around 33 or 34, moved into the role of procurer of young women for Epstein's later, court documents have alleged, a claim her lawyers have denied, saying that she was only a victim. She had not been charged with the crime related to Epstein's case. I personally think it was a referral network. And so they would get girls. I think that this guy, Epstein, this was his girlfriend. And it was like, then they would pay other girls to join in. That's what it seems like. There is a police report. Not sure how much of this police report we want to go into right now. Let's see. What do we got? We got the rapey dom thing. So we have to get through the rapey dom thing in this video. There's like 3 articles on this. So she had been described as loyal to the pervert, allegedly visiting him around 90 times while he was in the Florida jail in 2008. So this is why I don't think that it was sex trafficking. Why on earth, if she was sex trafficked, why on earth are the police letting her go to the jail to visit Jeffrey Epstein? Because it's a child bridery situation. If you're unfamiliar with what child bridery means, it's where somebody marries someone who's under the age of 18 or under the age of majority in that country. So in poor countries, when a lot of times when they have child bridery, families will prearrange marriages, and it causes young women to be locked into poverty because they're treated like baby factories. They're just there to have babies and they don't get through school. In this particular case, this girl, Nadia, it looks like she got hooked up. Instead of being poor and living a life where she is in poverty, she's actually very wealthy and she flies airplanes. And because this billionaire Jeffrey Epstein hooked her up with a bunch of shit. So as for the damages that this guy has caused this woman, it doesn't seem like there's financial damages that she greatly financially benefited from her relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So, how far are we going to go in this? The visits prompted outcry after details of them surfaced even years later, with critics noting that Markinova was allegedly one of the former victims that he was receiving perk inmates usually don't get. I don't know, they're letting him bang in the cell or something? Probably not. Photos that surfaced last week also showed Markinova and Epstein romping at some point on his private Caribbean Isles, Little St. James, which locals call Pedophile Island because of his sick deeds. I haven't found any evidence that they had any girls who were under the age of 13, which is the... I can never remember that. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. That one defines it as the cutoff is 13. Definitely seems like they're more like child brightest, which is more like statutory rape, more akin to raping a woman who's passed out, creepy rape-o-perv, not a pedophile. I think that a pedophilia is an egregious crime. So when you call Jeffrey Epstein a pedophile, like this guy had sex with thousands of like absolutely gorgeous models, lived the life of luxury. You make being a pedophile look really good. I think that that's particularly dangerous. Like, pedophile is a special kind of person. Jeffrey Epstein definitely seemed to be more like a creepy pervert who had a child bride. So if you want to read the police report, I'm not going to read the police report because it's describes a lot of just like creepy, pervy stuff. But if you want to read it, here is the, all right. Things in my way. Here's the police report. See if I can zoom in a little bit more. I'll just click through it and I'll let you read it. If anybody's, trigger warning, they're talking about creepy, pervy stuff. You can also just search for it. Palm Beach Police Report and then Jeffrey Epstein. If you want, you can just pause the video. Oops. What it sounds like, it's like they would get girls to find other girls and they would pay them money for a referral fee. So it definitely looks like Markinova definitely was involved in that. The next article we're going to read, we're going to see it looks like the, what was that woman's name? The Ghislaine Maxwell. Looks like she's a pretty rapey chick. She's pretty dom. She's like some butch, like rape you with the strap-on dildo type. All right. Is there anything else in here? We're just a couple of paragraphs. Let's read all of it in detail because the truth's usually not always bottom line up front. Website for company also Avalop says it helps market in the aviation industry. Oh, Markova, she worked as a model and a pilot over the years. She also got into real estate. Her career evolved from marketing through high fashion modeling to aviation, says her profile, which uses slightly different last name, Marquino, and figures a photo of the sexy flyer in pilot's uniform staring off into the distance. When Nadia was ready for longer runways, she became an aerobatic pilot, licensed flight instructor, and airplane transport pilot, or ATP, rated on multiple Gulfstream and Boeing aircrafts, the site adds. During her career in aviation, Nadia developed a thorough understanding of the industry and its demands. So obviously, she was not left in poverty from being a sex trafficking victim from this billionaire guy. She obviously got a lot of benefits from it. Extensive, which does not justify him committing statutory rape, but I don't think it justifies a death sentence for Epstein either. Extensive flight logs related to Epstein's air flight have been subpoenaed by the U.S. Virgin Islands top prosecutors as part of a lawsuit against his estate bid to back up charges involving him, including rape and prostitution. Epstein was found dead, hanging in his Manhattan cell in August 2019 while awaiting sex trafficking. They were taking pictures. I think the most egregious thing that Jeffrey Epstein did was they were taking pictures of the girls, and they had been making them a victim of prostitution. Can be devastating for a woman. You should not. I have been a little bit callous, just saying, all right, well, these girls are being prostitutes. They're getting other girls into it. They're like doing a referral network, so they're getting paid. It's like the girls themselves becomes the sex traffickers at that point in time. But that's not. So whenever you do that, you're adding another level of shame to these women because they know I got money to bring another victim to get raped by Jeffrey Epstein. So this is very traumatizing for women. I have been callous about that. I do so humbly apologize to anyone that I have been callous about this too, that we do need to understand the psychological trauma that just comes from being a victim. It's not necessarily that they had sex with some creepy old dude. More of it is the fact of the shame that comes along with being a hooker and a prostitute and being a victim. This is fundamentally really bad. We need to make sure that these women know that that they're not used goods. It's not like the end for them. They still have a long life left to live. But this is the most fundamental dangerous problem about calling this pedophilia, because in order for it to be pedophilia, the girls have to be a victim of pedophilia. For them to be a victim of pedophilia, it adds a lot of shame to them. They're a sex trafficking victim of pedophilia. And that's not the definition of pedophilia. Pedophilia is defined by the Diagnostics and Statistic. I can never remember this one. Diagnostics and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders defines the cutoff age for pedophilia as 13. So Nadia was claimed to have been as young as 14, but these incidences with the police happened when she was 15. The relationship with Epstein continued after this. That therefore makes this a child bribery situation where he had a teenage Lolita girlfriend, as opposed to a pedophilia situation, which is where you're raping a prepubescent child. But the media likes to expand definitions, and it's because they get clicks when they can just say there's an Epstein pedophile network, Bill Clinton's involved, everybody's going to be clicking on the articles. So the media, they know, New York Post, okay, I think that the statutory limit there is 18. I live in Oregon, statutory limit's 18. You go over to Washington, across the river, very close from here, the statutory age limit's 16. In the UK, it's 16. Most of Europe, it's 16. A lot of Germany is like 14. So, I mean, that doesn't make it okay to like, take on a child bride. They need to be in school. But I think Epstein wasn't the one who was bad here. Definitely the rapey dom chick. All right. This next article from the New York Post. NYC woman claims Ghislaine Maxwell gagged, restrained, and raped her. A Manhattan-born woman has claimed that she was gagged, restrained, and raped by Ghislaine Maxwell before Epstein joined in on the attack, according to an interview published on Sunday. The accuser, identified by the pseudonym Samantha, told The Sun that she was violently assaulted after she recruited a 19-year-old friend for the notorious quote-unquote pedophile, told her to lie that she was 16. She claims she was then summoned to Epstein's Manhattan mansion, where British media heiress Maxwell took her to the massage room and started screaming that Samantha was a dirty, filthy whore, a lying whore. And quote, next thing I knew, she had a ball gag in my mouth, her hands around my back, and she was raping me with a sex toy. And quote, she claimed of the alleged attack when she was 21-year-old, or she claimed the alleged attack was when she was a 21-year-old Parsons student. So not all of these girls were underage. Seems like most of them, vast majority of them, were actually over the age of 18, which is why I don't think that Jeffrey Epstein is a pedophile, because I can never remember that. Because sorry. Where's he going? Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders says that the cutoff age for pedophilia is 13. So we should probably go with the medical definition, because it is actually medically defined. So when you're using that word, you should probably use the word with its the definition that it is medically defined as. Quote, she was using the sex toy on me and on herself. She then called Epstein in, and he joined in. She said, calling it traumatizing. And quote, I was terrified. I couldn't do anything to stop them. And quote, she claimed, quote, I remember giving me $300 and saying, don't think much about going to the authorities, because you won't be alive to see your day in court, or something like that. And quote, Samantha told the papers. Samantha, who has previously ignored Epstein masturbating while she gave him a handful of $400 massages in 1993 and 1994, said it was the last time that she saw the pair. Quote, when they were done, when it was finally over, I walked out of the door a very different person than when I walked in. I was in shock, and quote, she said. The abuse, quote, changed her life completely, and quote, left her fleeing the Big Apple to become a sex worker in Los Angeles, she claimed. So she continued being a sex worker. I think that's probably what's really bad about this, is it gets them, even though it's like, okay, is Epstein a sex trafficker, or is he a John? Is he just paying for a hooker, or is he making money off sex trafficking, based upon the evidence that we've seen so far? Looks like they're paying for people to have sex with them. And this Ghislaine Maxwell is a rapey femdom chick. Like, she'll stick a ball in your mouth and rape you with a dildo. Is Epstein like that? I don't know. I'm not trying to defend the guy. I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. Because I would like to know, because of the QAnon conspiracy theory, like, What relevance does this have? Everything that I've seen says that most of this stuff is bullshit. Like the stuff with Bill Clinton, Bill Clinton was never involved in any pedophile network as far as I'm aware. He got some massages from some of Jeffrey Epstein's masseuses, might have paid them to have sex with them. I think that's about where it lies, but they were 21 years old, as far as I'm aware, at the time. But this, getting raped by some femdom chick, get putting a ball in your mouth, that could definitely turn somebody into a hooker. I don't know why you would continue to work as a sex worker after that. I think that's kind of your fault. If you're working as a sex worker, like, you probably shouldn't do that, but I'm not going to shame you. I'm not going to sit up here and say that I'm better than you or anything. I might also too make the same decision that you made in that situation. So you should not feel bad about being a victim of it. You just got to move on. Quote, they stole my whole life. I had a bright future ahead of me. They took that from me. And quote, Samantha, now 48, told The Sun. Quote, I feel like they took away my ambition, my drive, my future. No, you were the one that wanted to be the hooker. You were the one that took the money. You got referred by a friend who said, look, I know this rich dude. He'll pay us money to have sex with him. You were the one that went down that road. It's not Jeffrey Epstein that made you do that. You were the one that said, I wanted to get some money from having sex with this rich dude. And then whenever you did that, some creepy, rapey, femdom chick stuck a ball in your mouth and raped you with a dildo. That sucks. You shouldn't be a hooker. You're engaging in illegal behavior. It's illegal. She went to Nevada and worked as a legal sex worker. So is it any worse that they did it illegally or that she went over to Nevada and was working as a legal sex worker? I think that if you're a prostitute, I could probably use a hooker. If you know any hookers, then you should comment down below. Tell me what you think. The new Manhattan-born accuser's lawyer, Spencer Cuvin, told the paper that she was submitting an application for the Epstein Compensation Fund. So just right away, the fact that they're trying to sue the guy to get money out of it. I mean, she's saying, I went over and worked legally as a hooker after that. Sounds like her deals with Ghislaine Maxwell. But hey, dude's got hooker payoff money. So if you can get some of that hooker payoff money, the dude's dead. I mean, the money's up for grabs, right? And Samantha was willing to talk to investigators. Said she was only coming forward now that Epstein is dead and Maxwell's being held in custody on serious charges, claiming she was previously too scared. Understandable. But that is also a common thing that if people are suing too late, because you have a window where you can sue for things, and this was a long time ago. If you say that they threatened to kill you, you can, if you came to the police, you can actually extend that court deadline. So I don't know. There's no evidence that this actually happened. You're innocent until you're proven guilty. There's a lot of really, really bad looking false rape accusations. I'm not going to say that this is true. The New York Post generally does a pretty decent job. It's America's oldest newspaper. I think it was founded by Alexander Hamilton. She insists that Maxwell was, quote, the real monster, end quote. And she wants to see her, quote unquote, suffer in prison rather than die like Epstein, who hanged himself in Manhattan lockup last year while awaiting trial. Quote, I want to see her be punished. I don't want her to die. And quote, she told the UK paper, quote, I think that Epstein got away too easily by killing himself. I would rather have seen him suffer. She needs to suffer like she made all of us suffer. I'm going to push back. Who is the one who made you suffer? The woman who referred you. It was not the people that did this. It was the fact that you yourself became a prostitute. And this was a bad life decision that had real world consequences. I personally have a friend who recently died after she used to be one of my best friends. and she got into being a prostitute and doing heroin. And she recently died of a heart attack from the drugs that she was doing. And it was her. She was the one that wanted to fuck dudes to get money. It was her. Because she was like a raw dogger. And I can't blame anybody else other than her dope habit. So how is it any functionally worse? I mean, obviously this dude, I think the worst thing here is that Ghislaine raped her. The fact that they're giving this woman money to have sex with her is neither here nor there. I mean, yeah, it's a crime in that state, but it's not a crime in Nevada. It all depends on the context. It's also not a crime in the UK or many places in Europe to engage in this behavior. A lot of feminists would say that we should legalize prostitution. So they should say, well, the crime here, the real crime is that Ghislaine Maxwell raped this chick with a dildo and it was traumatizing for her. The fact that they gave her money to have sex with her, you know, if you are being a hooker and you go down the long road of being a hooker, that's your own fault for being a whore. You did that to yourself. If nobody else forced you into it, that's you. If you got pimped out and then you got sex trafficked, well, shame on him. But if you're fucking people for drugs and fucking creepy old dudes for money, giving them massages and hand jobs and shit, then that's on you. Samantha said she was recruited by another student at Parsons School of Design, the one who should share the blame equally. She's the sex trafficker. The recruiter is the sex trafficker, not the John. The John is just the person paying. He's the rich dude they're banging for money. She feels consumed with guilt. The girl that she had recruited and made lie about her age had also been sexually assaulted by Epstein, she claimed. Kuvin said that his client's story was backed by police searches of Epstein's mansion, found that various different sex devices that could be used in sadomasochistic type sexual activities. And quote, Maxwell's lawyer did not respond to the Sun's request for comment, paper said. Maxwell, who was arrested in July, being held at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn on charges of conspiring with Epstein to sexually abuse young women. That'll be interesting to see. This drama has been going on all summer. Been covering this story a lot. And I don't know. You know, my personal opinion is it seems like they were like massage. They were giving. So some of the Epstein had a modeling agency that has produced a number of the world's most beautiful supermodels. He wasn't banging all of the supermodels, but he was having sex with thousands of women and paying hookers left and right. And most of them were over the age of 18. So this comes down to whether or not you think that prostitution should be legal. And then he statutorily raped. And then they also did some pornography with some teenagers, which is one of the most egregious things that happened, along with some of the rapey situations. But you have to take all of this stuff with a grain of salt, because when people are trying to sue people for money, oftentimes they will make up lies in order to get money from people. So you don't know whether or not you can trust anything about this story. There was some other stories that sounded absolutely batshit crazy. I personally, I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest. And then I tried to take Jeff Sessions to the Supreme Court for writ of mandamus. So in filing this writ of mandamus, hold on. Of mandamus. And then I did what? Oh, damn it. I had a point, but I forgot it. I'm so sorry. Something about the writ of mandamus. I can't remember what the hell the point I was gonna make there. I don't remember. I'm sorry. I just spaced my point out. I had one. But anyways, if you like this video, like and subscribe down below. Don't forget to share these videos on social media. It's the best way that you can help this channel grow. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 more stories. It's been like 50 stories or something. Where are we at? In the live stream, we're at 2 hours and 5 minutes into the live stream, plus another 8 hours from last night. So there's a total of 10 hours on this episode of RSS commentary. Which, if you're unfamiliar with what RSS commentary is, RSS is a type of news feed where you can get free news articles from various news sources like Newsweek, Washington Post, Daily Mail, a lot of Hacker News, and Hacker News Best has a lot of different sources that also don't have RSS feeds. So it's a pop in place to get news. And so there's nonstop stories to comment on. And so RSS commentary, we just comment on these news articles from these feeds. Almost 1 in the morning. Sorry, I gotta get caffeinated up. Next article from Newsweek says over 6,000 scientists sign an anti-lockdown petition saying it's caused irreparable damage. More than, the petition, which is named the Great Barrington Declaration after the town in Massachusetts that it was signed in, was written on October 4th, has signatures from at least 2,826 medical public health scientists, 3,794 medical practitioners, and over 60,000 members of the general public. It was co-authored by Dr. Martin Kulfdorff, a professor of medicine at Harvard, Dr. Sunerte Gupta, a professor at Oxford University. I think we've covered her in another article tonight, too. And Jay Bhattacharya, a professor at Stanford University's medical school. Quote, as infection disease epidemiologist and public health scientist, we have grave concerns about the damaging physical and mental health impacts of the prevailing COVID-19 policies and recommend an approach that we call focused protection, end quote. Petition says it's an opening line. Quote, current lockdown policies are producing devastating effects on short-term and long-term public health, end quote. The petition adds, quote, keeping these measures in place until a vaccine is available will cause irreparable damage, with the underprivileged disproportionately harmed, end quote. Sorry, I got the hiccups here. Petition goes on to talk about the goal of achieving herd immunity, which the authors believe will minimize the risk of infection to all, including the vulnerable. I, too, also believe that herd immunity is the proper way to go because our immune systems work. It's not that COVID is particularly deadly compared to the flu. It's that we don't have immunity to it. And so it's very contagious because we don't have herd immunity. About half of the people dying are over the average age of death. At that point in time, they're going to die from any infection. If it's influenza, if it's pneumonia, if it's COVID, from anything, they're going to die from it. This COVID thing is only going to be really deadly like this for just a small period of time. It's not like a permanent thing going into the future. Currently, about 10% of the United States population has had COVID. One of the biggest health risks that you have from dying from COVID is if you're obese. If you're obese, your risk of dying from COVID goes up many, many fold. It's like 38 times or something. I think it's even more. Don't quote me on the exact amount. I don't have that number right off the top of the head. But if you're under the age of 45, I know it's 38 times less, and it's about the same risk of dying if you're really old as if you're obese. That's about as close as I know right now. So, what is the right? Why are you at risk of dying from SARS-CoV-2? Does anybody know? You die from SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. This is an autoimmune syndrome where the cells in your body cannot detect the protein signature of the virus. Your immune system, or the leukocytes in your body, are like heat-sinking missiles, and they will track down cells that are foreign, which are like bacteria or infected cells with viruses. It will detect that these viruses are not native, not part of the body, and then they will eat the cells. And that's how your body will cure cancer or any other infection in your body. With SARS-CoV-2, your body is getting false chemical signatures from healthy cells, and they start attacking healthy cells because they cannot detect the cells that have been infected because they don't have the chemical signature for the leukocytes to find the infected cells and eat them. There's about 6 strands of COVID. Only one of them is very deadly. The other 5, if you get that infection, you will be partially immune because your body will be able to detect the infected cells better after you've had one of the strands of SARS-CoV-2. So if you have all 5 of those strands of SARS-CoV-2, the chance of you dying from the strand of SARS-CoV-2 that is deadly is very low. If you take 2 numbers, so there's the deadly strand where you have a higher probability chance of dying, like maybe 5%. I don't have the exact number percent, but it's about 5. It is about that. The other ones have a very low percentage chance of dying, like 0.1, 0.01. So if you take 0.1 and 0.01 and you multiply them together, you get 0.001. That's your chance of dying from all 3 of those. So your chance of dying from the first one was very low, pretty low if you got one of the non-deadly strands. And then if you get another one of the strands, then your chance of dying from both of them is you multiply the risk of dying together, and then you get a total risk of that if you had both of those that you would have died. So the first time you get it is the most deadly or the most dangerous one. Then after that, your white blood cells are going to be able to be better at detecting the chemical signature. One of the reasons why some people didn't die from the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic was that there's the influenza virus there's 2 major proteins that the influenza virus can uses, or the white blood cells use to detect the influenza virus. Let me see if I can find it. It is bookmarked. 1918. think this is it. Doesn't look like it for a specific picture. Yeah, hey, here we go. This is what isn't the exact article I'm looking for, but here, these. Oops, sorry. Here's the proteins that I'm trying to explain. There's the HA gene of the influenza virus determined the property of the virus's HA surface proteins. And then there's another protein. Where's the other protein? NA. So there's there's the, what was the NA? No, HA and the NA. And these are the different kinds of proteins that the flu, whenever it latches on into the cell, there's these proteins and it allows it to get through the cell membrane into the cell so it could deliver the viral payload. Your white blood cells are going to be able to detect these. It's like a chemical signature. So one type of flu, this is about the Spanish flu pandemic, and there was one, there's like the Spanish flu is the H1N1, and there was two different types of flu that were going around at that time, looking for the different flu strands here. It's like H1N3 and then something else. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'm going to let you read the article, look it up. There's two different strands of the flu that if people got these when they were a child, that they were significantly less likely to die from the Spanish flu. And that was because their leukocytes in their bodies had partial immunity from being able to detect the HA protein and partial immunity from being able to detect the NA protein. And that when you combined these two detection abilities of the leukocytes, it then gives you immunity from the H1N virus from dying. This is what we're going for. This is what we should have been going for the entire time because this is scientifically proven to work. It's called your immune system. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It actually works. It's been working the entire time. It's never not worked. It's just that this was a very contagious virus because we didn't have herd immunity. So these things all got misconstrued. Let me go back to the article. So these things are obviously very complicated. I know this stuff because I modeled the human immune system in a computer. And so I learned all about how from modeling this in a computer, I just know how the immune system works. So, and then I also helped make ventilators, an open source ventilator for COVID patients. So I learned in detail about how to treat COVID patients, what's going on inside of your lungs. And so I'm pretty sure that the infection, I'm almost 100% sure that the infection rate is not necessarily correlated to the death rate. And I'll show you why here. We go to covidusa.net and we look up my state of Oregon. Here you can see the COVID stats for Oregon. I had 620 deaths. Here we can see the infection rate here, going back to the beginning. And then, so we had an infection rate peak, and then it went down, and then it went back up. Some point in time, they started forcing us all to wear masks. So then we look at the death rates down here. And then what you'll note there, what you must know is that the death rate is going to lag behind the infection rate by about 28 days. It's going to take you, a lot of these people are going to be hooked up to a ventilator for like some number of weeks before they die. You get sick and then you get in the hospital, and then there's some period of time, could be several weeks, a lot of people die within a week of being hospitalized. So as you can see from this graph, the infection rate was not correlated to the death rate. We can see that there was a peak right around of infection rates in July, and we can see that we go down over here, that we did not receive a corresponding spike. So we had spiked, but the lag we should have seen from this hump. We have a very big hump. We should have seen after this peak, we should have seen a spike. So we should have seen over here, right here at August. So at the 28-day mark, what we should have seen was a big spike. But we did not see a big spike. Instead, what we saw was a dud of a pandemic, which I'm not discounting the people who died or the danger to overweight people, but so the danger of SARS-CoV-2 is not from the virus itself, but from your own body. It's your body that is going to kill you, not SARS-CoV-2. It's not like Ebola. There's some viruses there's two different ways the virus can kill you. One, it can replicate in your cells till it starts to shut down your organs because they can't function anymore. And then two, there's the immune system response, where the leukocytes will attack healthy cells and will just attack too much stuff and then kill you by eating yourself. SARS is the latter of the two. It doesn't seem like it's like the Ebola situation where the virus is replicating itself all over and then shutting organs down. It's an immune system response. So with that knowledge in hand, we know that if you're overweight, that your chance goes up to similar to what if you're over the average age of death. So you have some number of months before the pandemic's going to hit. And what do? They locked the country down. So instead of telling all the overweight people, look, you got a couple of months before this is coming through to lose all this weight, you got to drop it now. And if you do this, your chance of dying from being overweight goes through the floor. Like your chance of dying of prematurely gets significantly reduced. But instead, we sat around the house and got fat. We shut the gyms down. We disrupted everyone's lives. If you're under 45, it's a 1/38 of the chance of dying of COVID. And those numbers, I think, have gone down even more. I think it's like now it's like 1,000 ratio. But that's because they've made some advances with steroid treatments that have slashed the rates of death. So the best thing for us to do is to be strong, is to not be unhealthy. This should have been the thing that we went directly to. We should have said, look, the fire's burning around us. We don't know whether or not it's transferring through surfaces, or if it's droplets from when you sneeze, or if it's aerosols when you talk. There's just like aerosols coming out and they're like so fine that masks can't stop it. We don't know any of that. We just overreact. We said, oh, we're just going to make everybody wear masks because it's better safe than sorry. I think that this was a detrimental decision. First, when you make, we have a mask ban here in Oregon, and if you don't have a mask, you can't go onto private property and you can't engage freely in commerce. This violates your right to free speech. It abridges the times, places, and manners when you can speak on public and private property. This is the negative rights that the government is not supposed to just have for any reason. You're only supposed to have it when you declare a state of emergency. So a state of emergency is, if you declare a state of emergency, you're supposed to help people out and reduce the number of deaths. You're not, if you declare a state of emergency and you cause more damage and more deaths than if you hadn't declared the state of emergency, you should have never declared the state of emergency in the first place. As it turns out, we don't know if it's droplets or aerosols that's spreading COVID. So it's not just necessarily harmless when you tell people you have to wear a mask, because this causes people to not be able to communicate. People need to be able to see your mouth and your face, your whole face, so that they can empathize with you, so that they can recognize you. One time when I went to the grocery store, I was walking in and there was a friend that I used to play in jazz band with for years, a good friend of mine. And I didn't even, he had a mask on and he's like talking to me. He's like, "Oh, hey, Kale, I saw your show. This is great." I didn't recognize him. I couldn't. And I'm like, huh? Is this like some random guy from the internet? Like, first I'm thinking, oh God, is this guy going to beat me up? Oh man. And then, it's like, oh yeah, hey, I've been watching this thumbnails are awesome. And, but these masks can cause you to be disconnected from people. Now there's 11% of the country is seriously contemplating committing suicide. I too myself has been very depressed recently. There's consequences to when you force people to wear masks. These consequences are to your mental health, also to your physical health, when you've made it so that people can't be close to each other anymore. People need physical contact with each other. We're like humans. We're animals. We need to use body language to communicate with each other and to give each other hugs and just be normal. And whenever you are forcing people to just be apart, because you're like it's like they're trying to stop the virus. This is just a bad idea. You're not going to stop the virus. It doesn't actually stop that way, or it doesn't work that way. The only thing you can do is slow down the spread of the virus. That's the flatten the curve thing. But when you slow it down, you're not like saving anybody's lives. Like if everybody's going to get it and we're going to get herd immunity, then it's like it's a fire that's burning through. And instead of trying to mitigate the damage of the fire by protecting the stuff that we could protect, that was like, for instance, the people who are overweight and the people who are over the average age of death. So instead of putting all of our effort into making sure that those people are quarantined and then allowing the healthy people to just live their lives as normal, we instead shut everybody down and then made a prolonged lockdown situation where instead what we did was we made the period of time, because we slowed it down a little bit. So we made the period of time before the fire eventually came through and burned everything up. We just made that longer. And during that period of time, we did a lot of damage. We did a lot of economic damage. We did a lot of mental health damage. We did a lot of damage to our children's educations. We might have crippled our future. I think Americans are pretty strong and resilient, and we will build back better. But we need to make these decisions based on sound scientific knowledge. We can't just like go off and be like, oh, well, we got to start scrubbing down all the surfaces now every hour while we're really poor, while we're struggling financially on our business. we're going to spend extra money to wipe down the counters and everything so everybody feels nice and safe. But then in reality, that like we never had any evidence that it was spreading through surfaces in the first place. So it's like we're doing all of this extra work. We're using up all of these masks, and they're having shortages of N95 masks in the hospitals because people are using them in the general public. They're disposable. And that's like a perfect example of how these things can cause damages through the overreaction because we didn't know what we were doing. We're like, oh, well, is it spreading? We just wear a mask because that's going to stop the droplets, because they did a droplet study and they showed it blocked the droplets. Like, okay, well, most people get COVID before they know they have any signs of it. It transfers from people when they talk to each other. Is it them sneezing and coughing? Is that really the reason why they did it? No. You were just talking to the person and there's some vapor in your air. Like when you feel your breath, there's aerosols in that. It comes out. Like, I mean, yeah, when you sneeze into a mask, like, yeah, it'll stop like some thing of wind. But whenever I sneeze or cough, I go like that. Like I do that stuff anyways. But what do we do when we are putting the mask on? What's the whole point even? To prevent yourself from getting sick? That's not the sane strategy. That's not the scientific strategy. No, you're supposed to minimize the amount that you get of the virus, minimize the viral load. So you wear the mask if you have an immune system that is compromised, if you're overweight or if you're over the average age of death, you might want to wear a mask because if you don't, it might be the last time you're going out in public again. But that's should be between these people and their doctor. If that person is a healthy person, I am going to have to put up with these repercussions from the lockdowns, the financial damage, the mental health damage, the damage to my son's education. We're going to have to put up with this for generations. Very long-term, prolonged damage. A lot of people, it's resulted in suicide. The suicide rate spiked like 356% or something like that in April, whenever the pandemic lockdowns started to come into effect. And I don't know where it's at right now, but there's consequences when you have draconian lockdown restrictions and with mental health. You know, they keep saying, oh, but in 1918, they thought wearing masks was patriotic. Oh, so like everybody thought wearing masks was patriotic back then. Right. And so like they knew more about modern medicine than us, right? So no, they didn't. They were in the dark ages of medicine. That's why so many people died. They're trying to make these comparisons to a flu pandemic from 1918, back before we had the internet. I don't even think they had microscopes back then, did they? Like they didn't even have penicillin back then. They thought that people would die from getting infections from spooky spirits. Obviously, today, if H1N1 had come around, we would not have so many deaths. And that's because we have modern medicine. You can go to a hospital, they'll give you plenty of fluids. We're not malnourished like people used to be. We have a lot healthier immune systems. So any sort of comparison, it's like making comparisons to Nazi Germany, calling people Nazis and fascists when you've never really studied World War II. You don't really know what National Socialism means. You just call people Nazi because it's a pejorative. It's a slur. It's like a figure of speech. It's like that. It's like you're making analogies here to something that the analogies don't fit. They're not good analogies anymore. It's not helpful and productive to compare someone to Nazis. Now, the term far right doesn't mean anything anymore because they've expanded the definition to just be a catch-all slur for any sort of politics that the left doesn't like, that's not like a flat social hierarchy. And now it's just like it's a word that gets people pissed off, the far right word, where it puts people in a camp where it's like, this camp is the anti-maskers, so they're far right. So that means because they don't think that you should wear masks in public, that means that they're equivalent to a Nazi, a fascist, a radical Islamic terrorist who believes in Sharia law. No, there's absolutely no comparison to somebody who doesn't want to wear a mask because they believe in science, and somebody who's a anti-vaxxer who doesn't believe in science. Because I'm a software and computer engineer, I believe in science. I believe in the beliefs that I believe because I've studied the immune system. I know how it works. And with my knowledge of the immune system, I believe that you're statistically way more likely to survive from the next deadlier strand of COVID mutations if you get one of the other strands, because it works like a vaccine. Because this is the way your immune system works. This is science. It's not anti-science. In fact, actually, the people who are pro-mask are the anti-science people. They're the ones that are saying, no, we're just taking the word from these people who don't have any scientific evidence because they think, oh, well, it's better safe than sorry. And then they just basically take that as religious doctrine. They're like, oh, well, the CDC said you should wear a cloth mask and that would help you out. And so then all these states put these mask mandates, like, oh, the CDC said that. So now that means that they're like the authority and that justifies it. That's the same reason why they did the war on drugs. They had all these garbage, fake research studies from the World Health Organization that said marijuana was a dangerous gateway drug. So they used this to justify illegalizing it. And now we can't legalize drugs because they're all saying, well, are you the World Health Authority now? No, I'm not the world. Nobody else can be the World Health Authority. This is why we have the war on drugs, is because we have this authority of people that are making all of these decisions for us. They're like an unelected body of people, and they're extremely corrupt. It's a bureaucracy. And it turns out a lot of these scientists are crackpots. They're just like everybody else. They believe in insane conspiracy theories. Some of them are even QAnon people. Most of them are Democrats. Only 6% of scientists are actually Republicans. So the CDC, they don't like Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump. They're actively trying to work to get Donald Trump out of office. So the policies that they're going to push for are not the policies that the majority of people that are going to be good for them. They're going to push for policies to get retribution against their political enemies. And because they're scared, they have a fancy job where they sit up top, they ivory tower, they get in paid their fat paychecks from their fancy CDC job. And they don't have to worry about their house being foreclosed on. They don't have to worry about their business going bankrupt. They're sitting up in their lab making money. And when your house gets foreclosed on and your business goes bankrupt, they're going to come in and buy it up for pennies on the dollar. And they're going to use it for their next startup company. That's how ivory tower liberals work. That's why they push the policies they do, is because they want you to like them so that they can rise up to the top, because they're all trying to get promotions to go up to the top. They're all trying to show people how good of a job they're going to do. And so they're going to push for policies where they feel like this is a bold step where they can help people out. Nothing wrong with that on the surface, right? Sounds great, right? Yeah. Only they're advocating for things that take away your civil rights. They're saying that you need to have a mask, that if you want to go on private or public property to engage in commerce freely with citizens, that you can't do so unless you are wearing a face mask. This is unconstitutional. It abridges the times, places, and manners that I can engage in free speech on public and private property and free association. This is absolutely illegal unless it's an emergency situation. So I guess, is this an emergency situation? what is the emergency situation for me? The overreaction to the pandemic. The pandemic itself is not an emergency to me. It's not like we had a natural disaster and everybody just got hit by a hurricane, or there is a mass casualty incident that came through from a pandemic. There's no mass casualty incident. It's old people dying in the old folks' home because COVID's highly infectious. There's about a 5% test positivity rate. There's about 5% of people who are dying who test positive for COVID. You do the math. That's why you got to look at people who are dying from SARS. That's the most important metric, is who had acute respiratory syndrome when they died. And that number is very small. It's not but the test positivity rate, if it was 5%, regardless of how accurate the test is, we would expect 5% of dead people to also test positive for COVID. Statistically speaking, because they are statistically highly likely to have COVID when they died. That does not mean that COVID is extremely deadly. That means that they had COVID because they were highly statistically likely to have COVID. People die. It happens. It sucks. And the old people should probably be in quarantine, and the overweight people need to be losing the weight before they get COVID and not after they get COVID. So, I'm off the soapbox. It says, quote, the most compassionate approach that balances the risk and benefits of reaching herd immunity is to allow those who are at minimal risk of death to live their lives normally, to build up immunity to the virus through natural infection, while better protecting those who are higher at risk, end quote, the petition says. Quote, we call this focused protection, end quote. That's what I'm advocating for, is focused protection. The people who need to be in quarantine, they need to be in elongated quarantine. It hasn't ended yet for these people. They're at risk. They're overweight. They're getting more overweight every day. So we need to get them healthy. And we're not going to do that by shutting down the gyms. The petition also discusses its approach to vulnerable people, noting that implementing measures to protect this group should be central aim of the public health responses to COVID-19. The petition offers a number of examples of how to protect vulnerable people, such as recommending that nursing homes use staff with acquired immunity, delivering groceries and other essential goods to those who are retired. Yeah, it's definitely, I've been advocating that the entire time, the whole summer, pretty much. Post the ventilator thing, after I made the ventilators and I learned all about the COVID stuff, I recognized we were overreacting and causing a lot of damage. I just realized, I was convinced I was going to have to hook myself up to this homemade ventilator that I made out of a 5-gallon bucket, trash can, and a computer-controlled air mattress inflator. And I was so convinced. And then I learned about what would happen when they hooked you up to a ventilator and how horrible it is. And like only 20% of the people are living, sometimes even 10%. And after that, I realized, wait a minute, I am completely neurotic with fear from the pandemic. And then that was the unbrainwashing moment. That's when I realized the news is absolutely fake, that everybody's just flipping out, and that the media was writing the stories for the audience. I haven't made any money off of this show, but if there's one thing that I've been able to come away with, it is I am no longer brainwashed. I do not believe in a bunch of nonsense from the news anymore. I do the research myself, and from that, I'm able to make a much more educated decision, and my decisions are not rash and don't lead to these horrible consequences. Hold on, I don't know that, actually. That my decisions might actually lead to horrible, rash consequences. We don't know. That's why it's a risk-benefit analysis. It says it goes On to say simple hygiene measures such as hand washing, staying home when sick, can help achieve the goal of herd immunity, while also noting that young adults should work from home, advocating a full reopening of the economy. Restaurants and other businesses should stay open. Arts, music, sports, and other cultural activities should resume. And quote, the petition states, quote, people are more at risk, may participate if they wish, while societies who enjoy protections conferred upon the vulnerable by those who have built up herd immunity. Definitely, we can't, if we're all broke because we lost our jobs, it's not going to be very easy to protect the old people who are now forced to work to get the basic necessities, when we could have just not shut the economy down in the first place and then done long-term quarantine for the people who actually need it. But, you know, at the beginning of this, we didn't know that it's mostly old people and overweight people at risk. They just thought it's going to be like the 1918 pandemic. I mean, we've had a couple pandemics since then, the H1N1 pandemic, and then there was another flu pandemic. I think we should have assumed it was going to be like the last H1N1 pandemic. The only real thing that you can do is your immune system needs to work. There's no substitute for your immune system being fully functioning. If your immune system does not function properly, you're going to die. Quote, these herd immunity strategies are about culling the herd of sick and disabled, Gal Slaves wrote on a Twitter thread. Quote, it's grotesque. No, it's not. It's not about culling the sick and the disabled. No, absolutely not. It's not. You're not a cull. That's the thing. You're not a cull if you die from SARS. That does not mean that your genes were worth culling. But why are the people at risk? Over the average age of death. Okay. Those people we can't really count in our response. We don't associate with those people. Usually most of the really old people hang out like at the old folks home and with some of their family. Most people just throw the old people up in a closet and they're just like, get some person at the retirement home, take care of them. It's like, up, grandma's over the hill. Just lock her up at the old folks home and come visit her once or twice a year. Right. Right. You are a piece of shit. But then the overweight people, all right, 30% of the people in the United States would classify as this, because I think it's moderately overweight to obese. Moderately overweight also too has high risk. So there's no real substitute for losing the weight. I've had a lot of weight problems in my adult life, and I know how hard it is to lose weight. The only thing that I can tell you is it's easiest to get yourself to wake up right when you get out of bed. I personally lift weights when I get out of bed. I got kettlebell squats, do jump squats, do kicks on the kicking bag. Not everybody can get out of a chair. So people who are in a chair, there's other workouts that you can do. And also just drinking protein shakes in the morning and just keeping those carbs off at the times when your body aren't going to use them. It's the best thing we can do to stay healthy. Also, lots of vitamin C. Actually, vitamin C does promote healthy immune system functionality. Will decrease your risk of dying from SARS-CoV-2. Also, vitamin D. If you get vitamin D now, they're not, it won't like prevent you from dying if you eat lots of vitamin C and get lots of vitamin D. But being out in the sun is the best thing that you can do. Best thing that you can do is keeping your immune system healthy. And if you are depressed, your immune system might not be functioning as well as if you're not depressed. It might cause you to gain weight. And then when you gain weight, you're going to increase your risk of dying from SARS. So, okay, I've beaten this horse to death. I don't think there's anything else in here. I'm going to let you read the rest of this article. Oh, there's one more thing on here. Next article from Newsweek. Fauci said he told Trump to shut down the country because he's a coward. Dr. Anthony Fake News Fauci, the U.S. government's top infectious disease quack, said he advised the president to shut the country down in the earlier stages of the pandemic because he was scared. He said this was the most significant decision he has taken during the COVID pandemic during a virtual Q&A session hosted by the College of Holy Cross in Massachusetts on Tuesday. And this is why you don't want to elect or allow people from the CDC to control your life, because they're not elected officials and they don't represent the general public. And they will oftentimes, they work in an authoritarian workplace. Scientists are very authoritarian. They're very dogmatic. They don't question the master. They take what the master